you have any regrets?
I was gonna be flippant, but after hearing you say that, I regret that maybe I should win next time.
This video is sponsored by Squarespace.
That was fighting for gay rights, and people were killed.
Nobody was killed at Stonewall.
Nobody was killed?
Willam has always been one of the most polarizing queens to have come out of Drag Race. And at this point, that reputation has less to do with what happened on season 4 and more to do with everything that followed it. Because when you zoom out and look at her career as a whole, the base of what it's built on almost feels like a contradiction in motion. This is someone who ended up burning their relationship with World of Wonder years ago. And yet she still built a platform big enough that she's earned a lot of respect from the fandom, including myself. In a lot of ways, she's living proof that you don't need the crown or the backing of World of Wonder in order to create something meaningful for yourself after the show. Yes, maybe you lost the hand that feeds, but at the same time, you can still learn how to feed yourself. That's why for years, that's been the easy narrative. Willam is one of the queens who didn't need Drag Race to succeed. She's quite literally among the pillars when it comes to blueprints of how to brand yourself to the public. In fact, many fans expressed how they wish they could have seen Willam return to compete on Drag Race. Like, let's push aside any dramas that she'd get into. At a base level, even if you didn't like her on season 4, you can admit that she was a really unique personality that was offering a lot when it came to the conflicts that would happen with other contestants. To top it off, she was actually good at most of the challenges, and you could tell that there was a part of Rupaul that really enjoyed Willam. In the 14 years since season 4 aired in 2012, Willam has maintained a presence within the changing fanbase of the series. Even if you haven't watched season 4, you definitely know who Willam is. So when it comes to her legacy, she's already cemented as one of the greats. That being said, it does bring the question, and it's that what happens when the biggest brand you've ever been a part of is also the one that wants nothing to do with you? All while at the same time, your entire business model still revolves around talking about it every single week. It's a strange loop to be stuck in. You're being pushed aside by the very people who helped launch your career, while at the same time still actively working within that ecosystem they built. Yes, you are making yourself independent with your own platform, but it's only sustainable through the coverage of Drag Race. It's an interesting paradox that only really got brought into the conversation during her drama with Mistress Isabelle Brooks. Not because the feud itself was particularly shocking. I mean, we do get Ru girls getting into drama with each other all the time. What made this significant is that it forced fans to confront something that's been hiding in plain sight for years. Willam's relationship with the franchise never actually ended. It just evolved into something more complicated and a lot harder to define. At the same time that the franchise itself keeps expanding with more countries, more all-stars, more versus the world editions, entire new lanes have opened up for queens who 10 years ago might have never been invited back. And that reality brings another question. In a Drag Race ecosystem that now has more opportunities than ever, how did Willam end up permanently outside of all of them? Well, I think the root of the story isn't just the Matthew Anderson drama or the podcast that she created with Alaska. It begins with the disqualification that became one of the most unforgettable moments in the show's history. But the real story isn't just about what happened that night, it's about the falling out that would end up happening after. So how did we get from a disqualification on season 4 that made Drag Race history to Willam getting banned from DragCon, creating a rival media company titled Moguls of Media, the many layers attached to this now over a decade-long feud? And what do we take away from this? Well, let's get into it, but before we start, so lately, I've been thinking about how much time we spend online and how important it is to actually own a little piece of it. Whether it's for your art, your work, your brand, or just a place to collect everything you're doing, having your own website changes the game. And that's why I'm happy to say that this video is sponsored by Squarespace, a great supporter of this channel. I've used Squarespace to build my own website, and the process genuinely surprised me with how straightforward it was. Their templates look clean and modern right off the gate. Editing them is honestly kind of fun. It's drag and drop and super visual. No coding, no weird backend setup, just you and your ideas coming to life. What's more is everything you need is built in, from custom domains and SEO tools to full-on e-commerce and payment. It's all there in one spot. You can even check your site traffic and sales with their analytics dashboard, which I love. It keeps things simple but smart. If you've been thinking about starting a site or even just centralizing everything you're already doing, now's a good time. You can start with a free trial by clicking the link in the description and getting an additional 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain, plus supporting my channel in the process. Now, let's begin. We all know the story of Willam's disqualification on season 4's top 6 challenge. It was one of the pillars when it came to the shocking moments that happened in the series. And to be honest, it still holds up to this day. The concept of Willam alongside Latrice being announced as the winners of the challenge, and then getting to see Fifi O'Hara and Sharon Needles lip sync for their lives, only for right after Rupaul to call Willam's name forward and say that because she was breaking the rules in the competition, she was gonna have to leave the production immediately, left fans with a lingering question. What did Willam do? In the reunion for season 4, Willam gets to have a special entrance where she's ushered in by a bunch of security guards. Naturally, going into this, Willam had come to an agreement with the producers of the series for what would be the official story behind her disqualification. The segment was pretty straightforward. Willam said that she had been sneaking her husband into her hotel room during filming, and since one of the rules for the contestants is that they can't have any outside contact with friends or family, it resulted in them having no choice but to get rid of her. Of course, later on, we'd come to find out that Willam wasn't the only one breaking rules that season. There was several queens in the cast that had snuck their phones in so they could keep in contact with their friends. Others had been getting their hands on weed and dealing it amongst each other, and even just leaving their hotel rooms to go to nearby malls. It was clear that the reason they zoned in on Willam out of the rest of the cast went beyond just simple rule breaking. As you know, over the years, Willam has provided more details behind her time on RuPaul's Drag Race. With that, we've got to hear her side of the story, where she says that from the moment she found out that she had been cast to be on season 4, she decided she wanted to make herstory and become the first queen ever to be disqualified from the competition. Her goal wasn't to win, it was to reap the rewards of being on the series and knock herself into infamy by cementing a controversial moment that would be talked about for years. To back up this claim, she said that around the time she went to film season 4, she was also cast in a local theater production, where she got Derek Barry to cover and fill in for her, even telling Derek directly that she would be back by a certain date, because regardless of if she hadn't been eliminated by then, she was going to disqualify herself. Something that Derek has confirmed to be true. What this left was two sides to this story. Was Willam getting disqualified something that she had control over, given the way she pushed it to happen by making sure she was a chaotic contestant that production couldn't control, plus her taking it upon herself to put pressure on the other queens so that they would complain to producers about Willam breaking the rules? Because in her mind, this would lead to producers having no option but to comply and get rid of her. That being said, there's also a different perspective that would be interesting to explore for a bit. And it's that, is there a chance that during the filming of season 4, Willam started seeing how a cast that started off with 13 queens had now dwindled down to 6, with the finale being just 3 challenges away, and had a moment of realization where she was like, I might actually be able to make it to the end and win the whole thing. It's an interesting perspective to think that the experience of being on set, becoming a contender for the crown with a now 2 challenge wins under your belt, and had managed to make it into the top 5 of the season, had she not been disqualified on the episode that she won, that she'd end up rethinking her initial plan to disqualify herself, because quite frankly, disqualifying yourself makes more sense when you have nothing else to lose. But at that point, going into the filming of season 4, did she take into account the fact that she would actually do pretty well in the competition, that the judges would grow to enjoy her as a competitor or the heated rivalries that she would have with other queens in the cast. These were all variables that she wouldn't have been able to predict going into the filming of season 4. And it's something that I've always wondered because it would be a completely different mindset than the narrative she has presented in the more than a decade since that moment. Because as you know, in countless interviews and podcasts, Willam has stuck to her original story. She was always going to disqualify herself no matter what it took. She's even said that if production hadn't stepped in, she would have started a physical fight with Fifi O'Hara and punched her just to force the hands of production. At the same time though, on Race Chaser, when reviewing the episode before her disqualification, they discussed the moment where she landed in the bottom 2 alongside Jiggly Caliente, a lip sync neither of them knew the words to, yet Willam would end up winning. What puzzled me though was how Willam described that moment. She said it was one of the first times that she realized production wasn't playing along with the way she was producing herself.
Sharon, Dita, Chad, and Latrice, and the bottom 2 are Jiggly and oh my god, Willam, I'm so sorry. It's never fun to be, I mean, I never was in the bottom 2, but it's never fun to be in the bottom 2.
Wow.
I can imagine. Did it suck? Was it horrible?
Just realizing that you had been bamboozled for by no fault of your own and you couldn't control it was so frustrating to me because up until then, I had controlled everything in my own storyline so well. So I was like, they're not playing along. I thought that we had an agreement. But whatever. It was fine. And yeah. It is what it is.
Up to that point, they seemed to be enjoying the chaos and reality TV gold she was delivering. She won the challenge of designing your boat and received repeated praise from Rupaul on her runway looks. And this reveals something important. Willam did end up in the bottom 2 and performed the full lip sync. So what would have happened if Rupaul had chosen to keep Jiggly Caliente instead? Willam would have been eliminated and sashayed away like any other queen. That possibility complicates her claim that she was determined to get disqualified no matter what. After all, her not knowing the lyrics to the lip sync arguably gave production everything they needed to send her home normally. This would have meant that Willam would have left the competition without becoming the first queen in Drag Race history to be disqualified, even though she later framed the outcome as her mission from the moment she was cast. Still, the version repeated for the past decade is that her disqualification was something she orchestrated herself. But when a story is told over and over without evolving, I feel like it makes it easier for people not to question it. And yet we have the footage. We saw how well she was performing in the competition, how much Ru respected her, and how she nearly went home just weeks before her disqualification. At that point, the truth starts to blur a little bit. If production had truly wanted Willam in the finale, would she have complied and stayed in the competition? I guess the cherry on top to this whole thing is that during the reunion for season 4, when Willam is brought out to explain her whole disqualification, Rupaul flat out tells her that she believed Willam could have made it all the way to the end and possibly even have been crowned.
I want you to know that I really, really believe in you. And I thought you had a chance to go all the way.
She then asks if Willam regrets what happened. Willam admits that she originally planned to say that she didn't care and regretted nothing. But after hearing how much potential Ru saw in her, she pauses mid-thought, and what we hear is, "I regret that I maybe," before she suddenly pivots to, "I should win next time," shifting all the energy into a joke.
Do you have any regrets?
I was gonna be flippant, but after hearing you say that, I regret that maybe I should win next time.
Still, that hesitation revealed something. Beneath the confidence and deflection, there was clearly a part of her that would have loved to have been crowned by Rupaul. As the years went on, Willam continued to maintain that she had no regrets and that she was always intending to become the first queen in Drag Race history to be disqualified. Yet her relationship with World of Wonder did remain intact. production clearly enjoyed Willam as a reality TV persona, so it wasn't surprising when she was cast for All Stars 1. Unfortunately, and infamously, she was dropped from the cast at the last minute, but by that point, she had already cancelled a full month of gigs in June of 2012 to accommodate the filming of All Stars 1. But that ultimately never happened, which understandably frustrated her. Ironically, even that didn't immediately strain her relationship with World of Wonder. That bridge was still intact. In fact, the story about her being dropped from All Stars 1 wouldn't surface publicly until much later, way after the eventual fallout with World of Wonder. Which brings us to the next question. What actually happened between Willam and World of Wonder? Why did she eventually become public enemy number 1 for them? And does she regret how things unfolded at the height of that feud? The bridge between Willam and World of Wonder would start to get burned in the year 2015. It's here that All Stars 2 had officially been announced, and fans were asked to vote out of all 7 existing seasons which queens they'd like to see return. Within the top 3 of the list, Willam had managed to get voted all the way to the 3rd spot, which made sense. And knowing that Willam had been originally cast on All Stars 1, it was a shoo-in that she'd be cast on All Stars 2. However, that did not end up happening. Despite the demand from fans, World of Wonder did not cast Willam on All Stars 2. As to why, who knows? Maybe they just didn't think she was the right fit with the rest of the contestants. Or maybe they were saving her for a future All Star seasons to not use up all the fan favorites in one go. Regardless, any possibilities of Willam's future return was tarnished the very following year. In the summer of 2016, season 9 was being filmed, but during the first episode, Rupaul got into a huge argument with longtime makeup artist and hairstylist Matthew Anderson, resulting in Matthew being fired from production and subsequently getting replaced by Raven. Willam always had a deep appreciation and respect towards Matthew, and the hardest part about his firing from the franchise was that it came when Drag Race had just started exploding into mainstream stardom. And it's that year that they would really start to get a lot of awards from the Emmys. To give a short synopsis of what happened, Raven would end up getting nominated for Best Makeup, to which Willam called out as unfair since Matthew had been the one doing Rue's makeup for 9 years leading up to what allowed Raven to have that door open for that nomination. Essentially, Raven was reaping the rewards of Matthew's work. Not just that, the specific episode that had been nominated for the Emmy on season 9 was the one episode that Raven wasn't there for, and in which Matthew had been a part of the day he got fired. Regardless, this, topped with the fact that Matthew was going through health issues in the months after the falling out with RuPaul, resulted in Willam for over a year defending Matthew non-stop for the way that Ru and World of Wonder had treated him. If you want to know more details about this, I suggest watching my very old video titled Why RuPaul Fired Matthew Anderson and Delta Work. It'll be linked below. It's after all this drama that officially, from 2016 onwards, Willam's bridge with World of Wonder had completely burned down to the ground. If anything, now that it's been exactly 10 years since this whole thing went down, the relationship has only gotten worse and worse. Willam's podcast Race Chaser grew and gave her a platform to be able to call out World of Wonder's production, speaking directly to the fanbase of the series that tunes into her podcast every week. At the same time though, the landscape of what the franchise was in 2016 compared to 2026 is completely different. Back then, All-Star seasons were scarce, and the United States was the only country that was producing seasons. Flash forward to now. All-Stars is not only a yearly thing, but it also has spin-offs of its own. Some countries have Versus the World editions, others are doing Slation Royale, Latina Royale, or even Global All-Stars. It makes you think how even a queen that had a low likelihood of being cast 10 years ago would have way more possibilities now to get asked back for something. I mean, even for English-speaking queens, they can go to Canada versus the world, UK versus the world, Down Under versus the world, and if you can't speak another language, you could go to some random country's own All-Stars edition. It makes you wonder that if after that whole fallout in 2016, if Willam had tried to mend her relationship with production and not gotten herself into any more trouble in the years ahead, that maybe at one point she would have been able to partake partake in one of their new projects. While it is something that we will never know, it does bring up the same question that Ru asked Willam in that season 4 reunion, which is there a part of her that regrets some of the things that transpired in the lead up to her getting blacklisted from the franchise? Personally, while I don't think Willam regrets speaking out about anything, I do think she regrets the consequences that came from it. Oftentimes, the stuff she was bringing to the forefront of the fanbase's attention was actually really important and valid issues to discuss. Along with that, it's important to still hold the production of the series to a certain standard and call them out whenever they do something that's wrong. As we know though, queens that speak out against the series, sometimes even if it's in a very respectful way, are quick to be tossed aside by producers, which I've talked about in some of my videos. Like, they'll literally cut some queens out for no reason at all. It's as if the queens have to walk on eggshells if they want to be able to stay in their good graces. That being said, there's a big part of Willam's trajectory that's a bit of a tragedy. A queen that had Rupaul telling her how she saw her as a potential winner for the season ended up having that same relationship be destroyed. Not necessarily for her own fault, but more so for wanting to stand up for what she believed in. She clocked unfair treatment before it was safe to say it out loud. And in doing that, she burned bridges that later turned into golden highways for other queens. And now she has to watch as the franchise evolved into something massive, knowing that she'll never be invited back to it. What this has resulted is oftentimes you can tell even while listening to Race Chaser how there's a slight bitterness when discussing certain aspects of a new episode. Willam will randomly go off on a rant about how producers are meddling in the background, or saying how shady some of the treatments of given queens is. And it weirdly doesn't come across as constructive criticism, because there's an energy in the delivery that isn't present when, for example, Alaska makes the same remarks. It's sort of like when you see those fans online that all they ever do is complain about how every season of Drag Race is rigged, that the new episodes were set up from the get-go, that the show is dying, etc. And it's like, well, if you hate the show so much, why are you still watching? And in that same respect, if Willam is so against the production of World of Wonder, then why does she still review it every week? Well, you don't consistently engage with something unless you do still care. To be fair though, it is a strange position to be in. Your biggest enemy is also your biggest paycheck. Her entire business model still revolves around a show that she claims to want nothing to do with, and whose production team wants nothing to do with her. That contradiction must suck regardless of the type of person you are. At some point, constantly having to see how other queens are uplifted by the franchise, or to see Rupaul being impressed by some of the queens that return to All Stars, does in a way slowly reopen the same wounds over and over of what things could have been like had there never been a falling out. All of this would end up somehow leading to her drama with Mistress Isabelle Brooks. In July 2025, MIB released a video directly calling out Willam for constantly bad-mouthing Mistress' name on several different platforms over the course of a year, even though Mistress had never engaged with her in any way. This was one of those moments where everyone in the fanbase tuned in. From the super fans to the casual fans, they all saw this drama unfold, and it was quite the event. Here we had Willam, an established queen with a huge platform, finally finding her match with Mistress Isabelle Brooks, who had also built her own platform very quickly within the past 3 years. Naturally, in the video, Mistress not only showed all the receipts in regards to Willam basically wanting to force a friendship between the two, only for Mistress to just ignore her over and over, until ultimately Willam was left sort of bitter about it. Or at least that's the only way that can explain why she'd end up going on this tirade of always mentioning Mistress out of nowhere to say how unprofessional of a queen she is, and that nobody wants to work for her, all for someone that she had never even met in real life. Not just that though, Mistress's video cuts deep because she also calls out what many people have been thinking for years, which was Willam constantly calling out RuPaul RuPaul and bad-mouthing the brand of Drag Race, even though all of her livelihood is built on the franchise and to this day is reviewing any little new piece of content that World of Wonder releases. Even her response to Mistress's video wasn't that effective. All of a sudden, someone that was super confident in calling out Mistress for over a year now had a softer tone and was all about being calm and reasonable. It just didn't feel genuine to the Willam that we had come to know. Subsequently, the significance of Mistress's video was that for the first time, someone said the quiet part out loud when it came to the weird relationship between Willam and RuPaul's Drag Race. As we reach the conclusion of this video, I wanted to point out that Willam is one of the most important queens to have participated on RuPaul's Drag Race, and is a key example of the platform that you can build for yourself even if you don't have direct support from the people that built the brand. This is more so when your legacy as a Drag Race contestant is frozen in time forever, as the franchise that you helped build keeps moving on without you. For example, Willam went to Crash, the Chicago Drag Race Live exhibit, where they built all the key sets of Drag Race, like the main stage, the workroom, Snatch Game sets, and more. Willam decided to make a surprise visit so she could experience it all again, even though some of the production members did not want her to be there.
Test you.
How are you?
I'm great. How are you?
Yeah.
You got a problem?
Nope.
Good.
Say hi, see how you're doing.
I'm great. So nice to see you again.
Good to see you too.
Yeah. You gonna come to Roscoe's tonight?
Probably not.
Why not? What's up, good season 1, Chanel?
I feel like we could walk around together.
Why? You don't like me and I don't like you.
Brutality.
And I paid my money. We don't need to walk around together. Leave me alone. Literally, she runs this place and she's been walking around with me for an hour because she doesn't trust me. Yup. My day's been great. I've been getting stalked though.
Really?
I think I have a fan.
I know.
She said we could call security if you need. She said you can call security if you need.
Yeah. She's very helpful like that.
She is. But I mean, you're the most helpful. Is this more fun or less fun than DragCon? It is? Why? No cops? You don't have 11 cops circling me? No, honestly, she had 11 cops circle me the last DragCon and she kicked me out. She don't like me.
For her to finally, after over 14 years since the last time she was on set, to get a small taste of what it could have been like to return really must have been so surreal for her. At the same time, it's yet another example of what could have been if things had just been different. At the end of the day, this isn't really about deciding who was right or wrong, or reducing Willam to one infamous moment. It's an overview of a career that is super layered, because there truly isn't another queen in the history of this franchise whose relationship with Drag Race looks quite like hers. She helped create one of the most unforgettable moments, built an independent platform without its backing, challenged it publicly when few were willing to, and remained tethered to its orbit in ways that are equally parts complicated and also weirdly deeply human and understandable. If anything, Willam's trajectory shows the cost of creating your own platform outside of World of Wonder. And whether you see her story as a cautionary tale or complete inspiration, it's undeniably one of the most fascinating legacies to come out of Drag Race. If you made it to the end, do me a favor and give this video a quick like and comment below to help me out with the algorithm, and also subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. I'll see you guys next time. Thanks again to Squarespace for supporting the channel. Click the link in the description to make your first website and earn 10% off your first order. I want to take a moment to thank my patrons. In the Elite Pink Squad, we have Matthew Burns, Gay Uncle, Sari Tish, Las Potitas, Cool Gal Nan, Jet Sam Adams, and Natasha De Leon. And in the Gay Squad, we have Lone Resident, Christine Gregory. And in the Green Squad, we have Cayman Rider Furry, Edgar Allan Pup, The Only Sean, IJS, Not a Punch, But a Keek, Jack Beck, Galeria Gomez, Sarah G, Scarlet Rose, Boiled Peanut, Not an Omelet, But an Egg, Max Whale, Dea, Dea, and Niall O'Hearn. If you'd like to see your name on the screen, you can support me on Patreon. The link will be in the description. I'll see you guys next time.